Good morning everyone. Kapwa ka Filipino, tara magbasa na tayo ng ating sariling history book. History of the Filipino People by Agoncillo and Guerrero. Today is 06 March 2023. History of the Filipino People, Part 6, the Third Republic. Topic number 24, Post-War Problems and the Republic. Nandito na tayo sa paragraph, American Financial Aid. Basa. American financial aid. The general economic situation arising from the ravages of the war led by the American government to survey the actual damage inflicted by the enemy on the Philippines. Consequently, Senator Millard Tydings, co-author of the Tydings-McDuffie Independence Act, was sent to the Philippines to make the survey. Tydings arrived in Manila on May 23, 1945 and intended to stay for 4 weeks. A misunderstanding with MacArthur led Tydings to conclude his mission after a few days' stay. Upon his return to the United States, Tydings recommended that the Philippines be given $100 billion for rehabilitation and reconstruction. Moreover, he recommended that the pre-war trade relations between the Philippines and the United States be continued for a period of from 3 to 5 years. Ulitin ko ha. Moreover, he recommended that the pre-war trade relations between the Philippines and the United States be continued for a period of from 3 to 5 years. Measures were then enacted by the American Congress to help put the Philippines on her feet. It boosted for $120 billion for the rehabilitation of public buildings, roads, and bridges. To put Philippine finance on a sound basis, the American Congress also passed a law providing for $75 billion for budgetary purposes and another $25 billion for the redemption of guerrilla notes used as currency of the guerrillas during the occupation. On top of this, the American Army surplus worth $1 billion, but with a sale value of 100 billion pesos was turned over the Philippine government. Bakit 1:1 ba dati? Ulitin ko lang ha. Ang laki, guys, pareho lang ba yung yung currency ng dollars dati sa piso? Nakalagay kasi on top of this, the American Army surplus worth $1 billion, but with a sale value of 1 billion pesos was turned over to the Philippine government. For reconstruction purposes, the United States Reconstruction and Finance Corporation granted a loan of $60 billion. Yung P sign is peso, yung dollar sign. So, dollars. Tingnan mo, ulitin ko. For reconstruction purposes, the United States Reconstruction and Finance Corporation granted a loan of $60 billion to the Philippines. The Bell Trade and Rehabilitation Acts. The proclamation of Philippine independence on July 4, 1946 was a settled matter. There was no opposition from across the Pacific, but the matter of future trade relations was given some thought by American leaders on September 26. So, ang independence pala natin is July 4. Pero nagsiselebrate tayo ng June 12. Okay, ulit. The Bell Trade and Rehabilitation Acts. The proclamation of Philippine independence on July 4, 1946 was a settled matter. There was no opposition from across the Pacific. But the matter of future trade relations was given some thought by American leaders. On September 26, 1945, Congressman C. Jasper Bell of Missouri introduced a bill providing for free trade relations between the United States and the Philippines for a period of 20 years. The bill was opposed in some quarters as being prejudicial to the preparation of the Philippines for independence. Senator Tidings described the bill as opposed to independence and that its opponents were in favor of keeping the Philippines economically a colony of the United States. Jasper Bell, however, was not dismayed. In October, he introduced another bill providing for an 8-year free trade relations with the United States. After much discussion, the bill was approved. The bill known as the Bell Trade Relations Act provided for free trade relations between the United States and the Philippines until 1954, after which goods coming from the United States and from the Philippines would be taxed 5% tariff increase every year until the full 100% was reached in 1974. The bad feature of the law was the provision giving parity rights to the Americans, that is to say, the Americans would have the right to dispose, exploit, develop, and utilize all agricultural, timber, and mineral lands of the Philippines, together with the operation of public utilities and the exploitation of the waters, minerals, coal, petroleum, and mineral resources of the Philippines. This particular provision meant that the Filipinos would have to amend the Constitution, which provides that only corporations of which the Filipinos owned at least 60% could dispose, exploit, develop, and utilize the public lands and their mineral resources. To make matters worse for the Filipinos, the American Congress passed the Tidings Rehabilitation Act as a complement to the Bell Trade Relations Act. President Truman signed the bill into law on April 30, 1946. The Rehabilitation Act provided for an outlay of $620 billion to be given to those who suffered damage during the war, but the condition was attached to the payment of war damage that no amount in excess of $500 would be given unless and until an agreement had been reached by the presidents of the Philippines and the United States regarding trade relations between the two countries. The effectivity of the Rehabilitation Act was conditioned by the amendment of the Philippine Constitution in such a way as to give parity rights to the Americans. It is obvious that the United States would help her most loyal ally only if the Americans would be granted the same rights as the Filipinos enjoy in the exploitation of the natural resources of the country. The United States then played the role of a man who, having been aided by a friend who lost everything in defense of the former, now brashly demanded that he be given the right to live with his friend's wife in exchange for his financial help. The election of 1946. When MacArthur returned to the Philippines, the officials of the Laurel government were forcibly taken by the Japanese. Some of them were taken to Baguio in the wake of the retreating Japanese army, while others were flown to Japan. Manuel A. Roxas, elected senator in the election of November 1941, was one of those taken to Baguio. MacArthur, a friend of Roxas, ordered his men to liberate Roxas. Once liberated, Roxas proceeded to maneuver for his election to the presidency. To create a good impression on the minds of the electorate, MacArthur issued a statement clearing Roxas of any taint of collaboration with the enemy, to put Roxas before the attention of the public and at the same time to give him sufficient power to counteract Osmeña, who MacArthur believed was too slow the American general applied pressure on Osmeña to call Congress to a regular session. Osmeña did not believe in the wisdom of calling Congress to session, for he feared that the legislative body might fall into the hands of persons tainted with collaboration. Nevertheless, he had to give in to MacArthur, whose reputation was enough to cow him into submission. When finally Congress was convened, Roxas was promptly elected President of the Senate. As head of this powerful body, Roxas harassed Osmeña by either sitting on or disapproving President Osmeña's nomination to important positions in the government. The heavy burden of his state and his delicate health led Osmeña to the conclusion that it was time for him to retire. He made his announcement to his men, saying that if Roxas wanted to be the president, he, Osmeña, would be graceful enough to give way to the younger Roxas. Roxas himself was not in good health, and this fact led him to believe that now was the time to become president. Osmeña's men wanted him to continue to serve the country, and so persuaded him to run for the presidency. Thus, the Nacionalista Party was split into factions, the Osmeña faction and the Roxas faction. On January 4, 1946, Congress met in a special session and set the election on April 23. Roxas began strengthening the machinery of his faction, which was named the liberal wing of the Nacionalista Party. Several factors favored Roxas on the positive side. He was younger and go-getter, brilliant and effective orator, and backed up by MacArthur, Paul B. McNutt, the American High Commissioner to the Philippines, and Mrs. Aurora Aragon Quezon, the late President's wife. Moreover, Roxas had a paramount issue against the Osmeña administration, namely the graft and corruption in the government. On the negative side, Osmeña was a passive man whom many people believed was too slow in the face of a national crisis. Moreover, he refused to go out to campaign and satisfied himself with saying that the people knew his 40 years of honest and faithful service to the country. The people, of course, ang tagal guys of 40 years. The people, of course, knew all this, but they missed the magic of his personality in numerous meetings throughout the country, while on the other hand, they were transfixed by the fiery oratory of Roxas, who promised to bring heaven to earth. The people who had the promise to bring heaven to earth. The people who had enough of conditions reminiscent of the Japanese occupation refused to heed the warnings of the pro-Osmeña camp that Roxas was a collaborationist and should therefore not be elected. They prepared instead beautiful promises of heaven and consequently catapulted Roxas to the presidency. Carried along with Roxas were his running mate Elpidio Quirino and a majority of the liberal candidates for senator and representative. With Roxas' victory, the liberal wing of the Nacionalista Party assumed a new color and became the Liberal Party. 2 months after the election on July 4, 1946, Philippine independence was proclaimed, and Roxas became the first president of the Republic. Okay, hanggang dyan na lang muna. Bukas na itong policies of the Roxas administration. Bye everyone. God bless.